Okay, so while we're waiting for a little more of the crowd to gather, we're just having a little free chat here. If folks would like to throw a question out in the chat box, they're welcome to do it, and we'll do introductions and stuff a bit later.
There is a question in the Q&A already too.
Already? Oh, shoot. Okay, Bob, what is the question?
Question, how do we handle small craft advisory if it happens to be the start date for the race?
I have run into that on numerous occasions. We go. Small craft advisory, we go. Gail, we talk about. Small craft advisory, go. That's wonderful. That's good news. That's a good question because basically you're going to get better wind than that several times out there on the course.
And Michael, would you say an aspect of that that differs from, let's say, some of our inshore races is the fact that the boats are by definition equipped to handle anything, including like storm trysails, storm jibs. Like there's just a different kind of set of preparations on board. Like, would you say that factors into that?
That's really well put. That's exactly right. If you should be able to sail in a small craft advisory conditions, which, basically here on San Francisco Bay, we call that Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I mean, the good news is, of course, once you get out past the gate, the chop it's different. It's longer, it's slower. The water conditions are actually considerably nicer usually. Um, and the wind dies down once you pass the Gulf of the Farallones anyway. Hopefully, it doesn't die down before you get out to the synoptic wind. But that's a matter of how fast you get out there. What is the best way to find us? Oh, this is fun. I guess we're doing this backwards. I don't care. What is the best way to find a spot as a crew with a strong skipper? What do you think, Greg?
I'm just
It's
trying to figure out, does that mean like physically, like we got to, arm wrestle or
Do you think that's what it means?
I don't know.
I don't.
it's of course being on a team that's planning on doing it, right? Because you want to be on it as you start prep. And we were chatting earlier, prep's already started for many of us.
Oh yeah.
I have a feeling that I'm late already, and I've done this a couple of times. Um, so being on a crew is the way to go. If you're not on a crew, the Pac Cup has crew availability lists that I've recruited from in the past. That's worked really well. There are other ways, other regattas and yacht clubs you can join up and start to get on crew. It's maybe a challenge in the beginning, but as your name gets known and as you sail more, you start to find rides.
Yeah, I found
Yeah.
on my first Pac Cup with my boat, I found the two crew people at one of the early seminars.
The
So
seminars are good. The social following the seminars, our safety at sea seminar. We got a party coming up at the end of September. All of those are great opportunities to meet people. And then of course you need to figure out whether the person you've met is somebody you want to sail with. Asking around, going out with them more than once, and not letting your eagerness to do the race cloud your judgment as to whether it's a good boat to be on. Not all of them are. I mean, mine is, of course, or it was till I donated it. Now I got a new boat and it's still good. It's just much smaller. All right. Um, shall we launch in? We're 6 minutes in and we got a pretty good crowd. I recognize a few names. I feel like Miss Marianne. I see Stephanie, who just finished the race, the Transpac race, and hope she's coming back. But let me introduce ourselves and myself. First of all, I am Michael Moradzadeh, your host for the day. I've done 15 Pacific crossings, mostly with Pac Cup, and former Commodore and PRO, and right now I'm your webmaster. Um, Next to me on the screen here is our Commodore, Bob Hinden, who will be here to help answer questions that come up. Um, Bob, how many times have you done the race
I've
now?
done the race 5 times.
5 times, and you've come back
I think,
1.5?
um, yes, something, or 2.5, maybe it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like
No,
that.
yeah, one of my crossings was half a crossing because we turned around 700 miles out.
Yes, I,
Yeah.
I, I have done that.
And that's good seamanship. Turn around when it's time. Mike Mahoney is a 3-time Pac Cup veteran. And Mike, you raced with your son Sean. Is that the deal?
Yeah, yeah. Last year was he I mean, this guy, he had it made, right? He raced with me for just graduated high school last year, raced to Hawaii, came home for 2 weeks, and went back to school at UH. So not
Yeah,
a bad gig.
that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Uh, and Greg, you also were in the 2024 race with how many teenagers?
We had 4 teens. We had 4 under the age of 19. All
Damn.
ladies. All ladies. So it was
Okay.
4 dads and 4 daughters. And then we did it in, some of us older guys did it in 22, and I did a Transpac back in 15.
I gotta say, 4 dads and 4 daughters, that sounds like it would be like a heck of a sitcom, frankly.
Yes. There was a bit of that. Yeah. There was a
Well,
bit of
I mean, there's drama in every group.
I
Uh,
wouldn't say it was drama, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy who got a pedicure on the way over and got his toes painted.
actually, there was stuff that happened on my last boat that I don't even want to talk about. Uh, Julia, as I mentioned, I was privileged to have her on my crew for Transpac, and you've done some both big boat and small boat racing, and of course the Paxton name is local sailing royalty. Julia, what do you want to say?
I'm happy to be here, and yeah, always available to be reached. I'm happy to be here any day, but yeah, always available to reach for questions offline as well. But yeah, I've done 3 Pac Cups, 3 Transpacks, and I love hearing the stories just from this panel because my first race actually, I graduated from high school, turned 18, and did my first Pac Cup within a month. So
Nice.
yeah, it's a good way to go. And I also did it with my dad. It was two father-daughter teams, and it was a windy year, which makes for good stories.
That's what it was last year.
Exactly, yeah. And when I'm not sailing, I also have a Coast Guard Chief Mate Unlimited Tonnage license. So I have kind of a different view to the whole sailing world from like the professional mariner side as well. So happy to field questions on that side if there are
Yeah.
any.
Yeah, so yeah, and so you've done like triple-handed and 16-handed and all that stuff. It's awesome.
35 handed, 335 handed. Yeah, but the double handed stands out. So we can talk about that.
Okay, let's see here. And I think Jim Quancy, oh, there he is. He's just showing up. Let me introduce Jim Quancy, who, according to Mike Mahoney, holds the record for most Pacific Cup finishes. Is that true, Jim?
We're gonna let Jim clarify.
I don't know. Depends on how you count it. So where I was the skipper or where I was just on a boat, and Paul Kamen's done a bunch of these.
Yeah, I kind of figured he would have that, but we got you here.
It was neck and
That's
neck
right.
last time I looked. We were both around 15, 16.
That's pretty
It's
good.
got to be close.
I've only got about 8 or 9. Jim, I'm glad you're on the screen right now because we had a question come up because we're doing things totally out of order. Ideal cruise size for a 40-foot boat. So Jim has been racing his Cal 40 for a bunch of the last races. And I've done a bunch on my Passport 40. So Jim, what number do you think?
Depends on if it's an old 40-footer, a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
40-footer, which, like a Beneteau or something, which can be big, or a rocket ship. So somewhere between 4 and 6. Um,
Yeah,
I'm a,
I'm with you on that.
yeah, I'm a fan of 5 at the moment, but maybe you're bringing kids or people, who can't drive, and maybe you need 6. And if you got a bunch of hot shots, you only need 4.
If you don't need too much sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
I can speak to the fact, J120, that was in 2018. We had 4. Part of this is what kind of setup do you have on the boat, all the kites and socks, So a lot of, I'm happy to chat with anybody about that too and tell you pluses and minuses. Sleep is definitely a minus, but yeah, it's always challenging.
All right. Let's
Yeah,
jump into go ahead.
if you have a good autopilot, sleep's not a problem.
And you trust it. Exactly.
Let's jump into our to sort of the decision to race moment. Greg, when did you say we're doing this?
I would say that the dads decided to present it to the kids on the 2022 race because it's with the same dads, both races. And as we were doing 2022, we're thinking, wouldn't it be awesome if? But to give a little background, these four girls have sailed together since they were 8.
Oh.
So they know each other. They grew up in the Richmond Yacht Club Junior program. They're very well accomplished sailors on their own right. And so there was never any really concern about whether we could do it. It was, did they want to do it? And so we went out for a few ocean races. One of them happens to be my daughter, gets seasick pretty easily, but she can kind of tough through it. The other 3 do not. And they did night watches and they did like the delivery from Spinnaker Cup back, the 4 of them, the dad's sleeping, it's like, okay, you guys go bash for a while, and tested them out. And it was always happy and always smiles. And so it just kind of happened. Once we had made that decision, let's present it to the kids and test it out. It just became a fait accompli. It was like, yeah, we're getting ready for Pac Cup. I mentioned, like, Bob let me know I was one of the early signups, and that happened this year. The signup came up. My daughter sent me a note and said, "We're doing it, right?" Oh yeah, I better go up, go and enter.
Yeah, well, that speaks
So-
volumes.
so
Let me throw one to Julia. What makes the Pac Cup stand out from other races you've done?
It's a great question because everybody, when they think of Pac Cup, you think immediately in the same breath, like Trans Pac, like, well, why do one and not the other? So actually, I took some notes on this because I was thinking, like, well, what really does make it different? And one thing is, we really, you hear us say, if you're on the email thread, if you visit the website, if you even look at a T-shirt, it's like it's the fun race to Hawaii. And I think that sometimes people get stuck in like, oh, fun, like that means it's easy. It's like the junior race. And what the first thing that came to mind when I thought of this question was like, fun does not exactly equate to easier. And actually, in a lot of ways, it's actually a tougher course. You start further up California in a more northern latitude. Your first 24, sometimes even 48 hours offshore, actually a lot colder. Oftentimes with Transpac, the conversation about crew gear is like, hey, do I bring my sea boots or not? Like, that's not even a conversation on Pac Up. I think we all can agree. It's like, how many layers of wool, are you bringing? Are you bringing 2 full sets of woolies or just the one?
Long underwear.
Yeah. Which is another one to point out, definitely excited to make and talk about is like, how do you prepare for yourself? How do you make yourself as comfortable as possible for these things? But what makes Pac Up stand out? For one, it's the start is actually kind of fun. I think, you get to short tack out, Golden Gate Bridge, you pass Bonita, you're like, all right, this is a hopefully one way for right now. And then you step off, you're like, okay, where do we go with the Farallons? We're going south. All right, where are we approaching the ridge? It's just like, it's a cool race. It's definitely very, very different from Transpac. And then also you get to finish in Kaneohe, which I know we can't say enough. Nothing against the Transpac finish, obviously trying to like hit the right ley line off Diamond Head has its own kind of special sauce when you're making your last jibe in the Molokai Channel. That's fun too. It's a different kind of fun. But then when you finish in Kaneohe, it's beautiful. It's absolute paradise. So that definitely can't be said enough. Also, I think one of the biggest things that's like the difference, especially if you're maybe on the newer side or maybe only done 1 or 2, or you're like, hey, I've done some coastal racing. What does it look like to step fully offshore and make the jump? Pac Up does an incredibly large amount of knowledge sharing. This is going to sound like a sales pitch. Like, it's not, because honestly, we're doing this right now. And this is something that I think has always been a part of the fabric of Pac Cup. The Pacific Cup Offshore Academies, which I remember going to even back in like 2010, something I think we've done for a while. Webinars, just a volume of information on the website. And not to mention, I think part of the kind of the I want to say like the Ohana spirit of the race is that we want to share this. We want to bring more people into the fold. So I'll get off my soapbox now,
Yeah.
but I'm a fan.
I'm gonna have to share a very quick anecdote. My very first Pac Cup on my Passport 40 Cayenne. I'm there at South Beach Harbor, and I'm like sitting on the dock trying to like shake a piece of wire through the pulpit, you know, and it's awful. And this slightly older couple, slightly older than me couple, walks by, and the lady says, "Oh, are you getting ready for the Pac Cup?" Which I thought was adorable, but I said, "Look, I'm sorry, I don't have time to talk right now." And I sent them along, and of course, that turned out to be Stan and Sally Honey. Uh, but that's the deal. I mean, everybody wants to help. Uh, um,
Way to go.
yeah. So talking of preparation, a question from Mike Mahoney. Top piece of preparation advice for a first timer, and did you learn it the easy way or the hard way?
Good question, Michael. And of course, like everyone will say, start prepping early. But okay, let's dive into that a little bit more. I would say like one of the most important things I would say, especially if you're new to this, is figure out what this race is going to be for you and your boat and your crew. Don't get caught up in prepping a boat based on everything you hear that the pros are doing, the semi-pros are doing. It's got to align to your budget, your skill set. How much time do you have to prepare your boat? There are a lot of things. You know, when I first started out, we did it in '06 and we did our first one. That was a Catalina 42. You know, we probably that was we kind of scrapped things together, to be honest, back in '06. I had a different plan for my current boat, the Tartan. And what was interesting though is I probably started to go overboard, you know, early on. Luckily, I had that conversation with somebody. So they said, "Look, Mike, like, look at your boat. Do you really want to do this to this boat?" And you know, it was like we could do all these different things, you know, but you know, think about what's it going to look like after pack up, and how much cutting or how many batteries do you want to install. And so there are options, and think through the options before you act, to carefully talk to a lot of folks, many of them on this call. You know, think about, again, what does your program look like? What's it going to look like? What's your program after Pac Cup? Are you going to keep ocean racing, or is this you know, one time and maybe, you know, you go back to the buoy racing? Think about what you're going to want to take off, and you know, so think about what's permanent and what you really want to reconfigure. Because again, make it align to your budget, make it align to your objectives. You make sure your crew is on board with it all, you know, that everybody's thinking through it the same way. So that would have been my initial thought. One of the most important things I think somebody shared with me this third time around.
Yeah.
Let me add one. That was all very good. Let me add one thing to that. The other thing I think to think about when prepping a boat is timing. And my model has always been you want to do all the boat projects like this calendar year, and you want to use all of the 6 months before the race start in actually sailing and practicing with your crew on the boat. And because you'll break stuff, you'll need more time. Don't be doing projects like the last couple of months before the race. You try to get especially the major stuff, try to get everything done early. Because you know, you do have to know how to sail the boat in the ocean and deal with problems. And the more practice you get, the better.
That's good advice. Ignored by so many of us, I'm sorry to say, particularly including myself. But it's still, yeah, the more you can do that structural stuff early, that's good. I believe I recall Julia looking in horror as I rebuilt a winch the day before a Transpac started.
At least it wasn't the bow hatch. Yeah, that was a couple weeks before.
Anyway, it was
So I have
terrifying.
a better version of that story. So we serviced all our winches, and we were motoring out to the start. This was 2020, I forget which one it was. And someone noticed that one of the primaries didn't turn. So we pulled into, you know, behind was it Fort Mason, because it's sort of a little cove, and we basically took that one apart, and we had the person doing it had put something back together wrong, and we fixed it.
Done that. Done
But
that.
so that was probably the latest winch servicing I know about.
I'm sure that
All right,
wasn't stressful at all.
what's that?
But I'm sure that wasn't stressful at all.
Oh, right.
No.
We were a lot happier to have it working though than trying to sail with one without that winch.
Yeah, I remember getting started for Coastal Cup and our hydraulics crapped. Anyway, it happens. The
Yeah.
less that happens, the better. Let's jump ahead a little bit, so we don't lose our schedule too much. We got, let's just say we got your boat ready. You got all that done before December 31st because you follow Bob's advice and everything. You're provisioned, you painted, you're out, you're at sea. Jim Quancy. What keeps you coming back to the Pac Cup, and do you think the race has changed much since you started?
What keeps me coming back are the people, as already mentioned, I think by Julia, the fact that there's 3 or 4 events where you get together with the competitors and crew before the start, and there's 4 or 5 events after the finish. So there's lots of opportunity to just talk smack, talk fun, have a few drinks, make some new friends, catch up with old friends. That's what keeps me coming back.
Yeah. Julia, talk about for you what captures the magic of the Pac Cup.
Oh, is it bad if the first thing that comes to mind is like a really, really bad wipeout that I had actually with Jim? I think was that 2016 we went on Encore, and another really windy year. I only went on windy years for like the first couple.
2016 was tough.
It was
Yeah.
gas, yeah. Which this is not your question, but one thing comes to mind in terms of prepping. Always make sure you have a smaller kite than you think you need, because most of our boats are inshore. We sail flat water, and then we step offshore, and all of a sudden you wish you had that fractional kite. You wish you had like an A7 or something just silly that would seem ridiculous, but you end up using it. So that's my one small prep thing. Is at least give yourself time for that kind of thing. But anyway, so that really bad wipeout was one, and actually not just putting our bow guy so far underwater that his life jacket, went off, and then pulling a shrimped kite back onto the boat. It was actually afterwards we all just sat down and laughed our butts off, because it was just a really epic moment of camaraderie. And to Jim's point, why do you do this? Is like part of the reason is for the people. You're making memories. Yeah, you can fly to Hawaii, but the flight's not going to be as memorable as doing it. But in terms of like actual, awesome moments, I think the first time you can actually see Hawaii, and of course, you're getting there. We all, now everybody has Starlink, everybody has SATCOMs, like you know where you are every single inch of the way. But the first moment, and we all know it was like been there, even flying there, the clouds change, the lighting changes, everything. The water changes, the ocean, everything. You're in the trade winds, and you can really the first time you actually see the clouds, that's like and see the island, that's like, okay, we're gonna do it. And then usually it gets dark, and then you really have to do it. But I think 4 of mine, I think I finished at night. So you're in good company. But yeah, I'd say that's probably one of my favorite. But I could go on and on. I'm clearly a fan.
I'm a huge fan of looking up at you finally get away from land and you get away from the marine layer and the sky, the stars before the moon comes out.
The
That
Milky
just
Way, baby, the Milky Way.
the
Yeah.
Milky Way, and you realize why it's called that. You don't see that here in Tiburon.
No, and a couple of those teen girls had never seen it before. And they
Ah,
were shocked and amazed. And they're like, what am I looking at? What is going on? It was really quite special.
That's
It
so
was really quite special.
that's awesome. Did you guys get pods of dolphins?
We didn't
Anybody?
get lots of doll. We did not.
Oh, okay.
Lots of
Yeah,
flying
we've
fish.
24. Yeah, last year we had a good show for a little while there.
Okay, we got a few questions coming in. And actually, Jeff Duvall, since we were talking about prep, and we'll come back to the race. Jeff is our chief inspector, and I'm sorry I didn't introduce you earlier on, and has done a bunch of the races. He's up in the Pacific Northwest. Jeff, what have you been seeing? Have you been getting feedback yet on boats prep, or is that not yet started?
So as of today, pretty much got most of the boats assigned. There's a few boats farther south for inspectors, but we have what I think 45 boats signed up, Michael?
Yeah, something like, yeah,
Close-
40.
close to that?
Yeah, I think we're 43, 45.
So-
Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah, people are responding, but like anything, like you said, Bob, this end of the year, I mean, you need to be thinking a lot about how well you want to do the race next year. And
Yeah.
getting the prep work done now, and I've been fortunate to be up in the Northwest, helping the boats up here a bit, and then Pac Cup has been part of my life since '98. My first
Yeah.
Pac Cup was on my Moore 24 in 2006. You know, I mean, if you're going to do a first Pacific crossing, why not do it on a Moore? And I proposed to my wife when I got to Kaneohe. And so it's, again, like Jim said, this is a big family. That being said, the boat prep, the PCRs, that's like your Bible. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be pretty daunting and intimidating when you look at that long list. And so I tell people, make several copies of that list, paper copies, have them next to your bed, have them at your desk office, have several on the boat. So every time you go down to the boat, hopefully you're crossing off something so you actually see some progress. A lot of that progress means you're going to have to buy the safety equipment, a lot of the required stuff. And a lot of it is just getting stuff dialed in the way you want. And like Bob said, you want to spend next year sailing. At this point in time, most boats have most of their crew probably dialed in, and yet you lose crew. You start out with this plan and you have your best friends or whatever, and then something happens in their life and they can't go with you. It's
Yeah.
hard to put your heart out into this race and then turn back or not be able to make it. But I just recommend to all the newcomers and even the people who've been doing it, have the inspection list at the top of your mind every time you go on the boat. It becomes less daunting if you're really paying attention to it. And the other stuff starts to take care of itself. One of the lines
I think,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I think one of the takeaways from that is list, list, list. I made 3 lists: one safety, one comfort, one performance.
Yep.
Yeah. And then yeah.
No, it's just important, I think, to stay on task for it. I tell people the hardest thing to do is to get to the start line, because maybe you planned it for 2 years or 4 years or 10 years. You know, you plant this little seed that you want to do something someday, then you finally get there. But I will tell you one thing, all the sleepless nights and working on the boat and the anxiety and stuff you might feel, when you leave the dock, you're going sailing. And
Yeah.
all that stuff just disappears. You get to see the Milky Way, you get to see the sun come up, the sun go down, the squalls that you go through, the terrible wraps of the kite if you don't have a spinnaker net. You know, all these things are part of the race. And you learn as you go. And I will tell you that not only because of the friendships I've had over the years, I can count a lot of you guys with that, but the experience for me personally, meeting a goal, doing something challenging that very few people really do. And so I respect all these sailors and all the crew that come on board and want to be a part of this, because you're putting yourself out there. And when you finish in Hawaii, you know, it's not just you and your crew. You've got your family, your girlfriends, your kids, your daughters, everything. You got all the support that's just been waiting for you to finally get to Hawaii. And I don't know, Michael, guys, how many proposals have we seen there? You know,
Well,
how many years?
I wanted to provide that as a bit of a warning.
Because you're
We get
delirious.
we get a lot of proposals
Yeah.
on the dock. One of my favorites was oh golly, must have been maybe 2012, maybe 2000, I don't know, whatever. And we're in there finishing, and this was back when you know they handled everything on VHF. And we do our check-in, and I leave the radio on. I'm the radio guy for the boat that day. And and a couple of the double handers do their check-in, and they start chatting with each other, and they said, "How was your time? Good. How was yours? Good. Well, you know, I'm gonna propose to my girlfriend when we land, but you know, it's a big surprise. Don't tell anybody." And I'm like sitting there with the VHF radio in my hand, and I'm like, I wonder
Oops.
if you know how this thing works. I never, but we do get a lot of proposals, and as far as I know, they've all worked out beautifully, so it's fine.
Mine has.
There you go. So talking about preparation, and we have a few equipment questions we'll take at the end. Talk about preparations. One of the big things to think about and to have a plan for, as it turns out, is how to get your boat back. And you know, your options include move to Hawaii permanently, as our friends Lou and Kim Ickler did. And that way you don't have to bring the boat back. Sail the boat back, but a lot of people also ship it. Um, which I've done a few times. But Mike, you've probably done yours more recently than I have. I haven't shipped a boat back since 2016.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
Michael.
2014. Yeah. So we'll talk about shipping your boat back.
Yeah, for us, so we shipped it back last year. Two boats prior came on their own keel, but shipping it back. So I think it can be fairly straightforward, but you need to stay on top of it. The one thing I did learn, and I've learned more since my son has been going to school in Hawaii, is Hawaii. The folks in Hawaii do operate on their own schedule. When you get that, you've got to obviously get it around the island to the other side and get it to the yard. When you get it there, it basically there's a lineup, and be prepared. Figure out your know your vacation schedule. Know if you've got somebody you got a rigger that's helping you at the other end. Get in touch with the yard. Make sure you've got things really, really well lined up. And when your boat comes around, do not hesitate. Get that thing broken down, get it on your trailer, and you've got it. And don't leave that yard until everything is on that trailer. These guys break for lunch. They move over to the next boat. And if you're not there when they're done with that boat, they go on to the next boat, and then you get back in line. So that is the one interesting thing I learned. But there are trailers available out there. Get a trailer that fits your boats. There's some few folks that can rent them. And so I went through Matson, brought it back into Oakland. It was very simple, roll on, roll off. Apparently, as of right now, I just literally shipped a car back over to Hawaii about a week ago. They currently no longer have the Ro-Ros in coming into Oakland. So apparently they're going down to Long Beach. So likely might have to go to Long Beach, but again, things could still change. I'm not sure what the reason is. They don't have the
Yeah, we're
that ship-
we're looking into that. It may be. I've shipped a boat into Long Beach and had it driven up too. That also
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, and we've done one boat actually we did bring back into San Diego and had to ship it up as well. But going in, Matson worked out really well. And just as a note, I originally had somebody under contract for bringing her back. It actually worked out. The price to get it back on a trailer was not that bad. So again, I got a 35-foot boat, so that worked, but it really was worthwhile for sure and saved a lot of wear and tear on the boat. But my only note is really, like I said, reinforcing that working with the yard in Hawaii is one of the more challenging things, just in the terms of staying on top of it to get your boat done.
Are you going to give them the case of beer tip?
Yeah, do that.
Oh yeah,
No, and
yeah.
I will.
Take a case of beer to the yard crew, for God's sake.
Yes.
Cold beer.
There you
It
has
has
to
to be cold.
Cold beer.
Yeah, because they're going to drink it while they're working on your boat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now,
Actually,
go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but if I just wanted to foot stomp one thing that I've seen go bad a couple times. Mike, you said this so well, but when you borrow a trailer, because there are a lot of trailers out there to borrow, because a lot of us, if we have 35 or 40-foot boats or anything in that range, we're like, do I trailer? Do I sail it back?
Yep.
You keep it in a slip, you wet sail it. So why would you have a trailer? But there are a lot of trailers out there, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, starting again, start early, start networking your way into it. So it's not like you have to buy a trailer in order to save all that wear and tear on your boat. That is such a good point, because you have to fit the pads. You have to make sure that the trailer
Yeah.
goes with your boat. So at least consider what that might look like. I know it's a lot of effort and time to pull a whole boat out of the water and like fit it to a trailer ahead of time. It would be a good idea. It would be the best idea if time were infinite, but at least just make sure that the pads can move before you get over there.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that in Kaneohe.
No, I've done it in Kaneohe on the hurry up, and it's very painful. So
I might just add that we're, the Pac Cup folks are in the process of talking to Matson and Pasha about what their current situation is, and maybe see if there's some discounts or whatever it is. That it's apparently pretty fluid with tariffs and everything else. So we're trying to figure out what the current status is, and we'll report back to the Pac Cup community.
we have sometimes even had some influence on their shipping, which surprised me. Before we move off shipping, there is a very relevant question from Falk Meissner. Size limitation for shipping. I think if I mean, there's no limit if you have no limit on your money, but if you want to fit within a Ro-Ro, I think you can be up to about 44 feet long, and you need to have your entire package not more than 14 feet high, maybe 16, depending on the ship, to get it through the door. Sometimes that's going to require you to take your Dodger off, maybe your keel off. In the case of my old Passport 40, we had to kind of just angle it forward a little bit and take the Dodger off, and it worked just fine. Weight limit on the lift at Kaneohe, 2,600 pounds, empty. Is that about right? Something like that.
Close.
It's a good thing. That's a really good thing to ask Kaneohe Yacht Club, because we were kind of, we're very much guests, and we respect their directive. And if, I'd say that would be like my first, and I guess the speaking as somebody on the technical committee. But I know that we've been able to haul Express 27s out, Santa Cruz 27s out of the water there.
What are you about 3,500 pounds?
No, I think more like 27, like
Okay, so yeah,
up to. So
yeah.
yeah,
Mike
and
Mike
I would ask,
Mahoney.
it's a simple phone
Yeah,
call.
and we're going to move on very quickly because I really love to hear Jim's story. Somebody asked about what it costs to ship the boat. You've got
Yeah.
yard at both ends, and what, 20,000?
No, under that, all in, I
Oh.
was closer to 15.
Oh, lucky you. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I had a 40-footer. It cost a buttload more.
And that was with the trailer. My trailer, just so anybody's, I got mine Rufus. I rented Rufus's, so
Okay.
35-footer. It worked great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but keep in mind, like more 24 Express 27s might be 8 or 9 grand to ship it back.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
close to what it was, or I mean, I think we were a little under that, but that was 2018 when we did the 27.
Yeah.
And I will say
Yeah.
the size, or how they bill, to my recollection, for the shipping price, and oftentimes it'll be free to ship the trailer over, and they'll just charge you for the cost of shipping the boats back. And then that's because we have
Yep.
long-standing relationships with the shipping lines with Pasha and Matson respectively. But they often charge by the largest dimension of the trailer. Basically, how much space can you fit? So maybe your boat's 6 feet wide, but your trailer's 7 feet wide. So that'll be like the largest common dimension in each direction. So just like
Yeah. So Jim Quancy, I mean, if there were a cult within Pac Cup where the adherents had to sail a boat back, Jim would be its high prophet. Jim, would you like to talk about sailing a boat back from Pac Cup?
Absolutely. And if your boat is bigger than 35 feet, you should sail it back or have some friends sail it back. It is more fun sailing the boat home than it is doing the race. You're reading, you're fishing, you're chatting, you really get to know the stars in the Milky Way in a big way. It's relaxing. You get lots of sleep. It is very, very cool. Not hard to do.
Okay.
And it's
Anybody
cheap.
want to chime in on that?
By the way, it's cheap too. If you do it yourself, it's probably, like on my boat, 40-footer, probably cost me 2 or 3 grand to sail it back. And that's food, that's flying over 2 friends from the mainland. That's a whole bunch of fuel. It is not hard to do.
Yeah, bring all the fuel you can possibly carry on board.
Well, or be prepared to go slow. So, I mean, the things to consider if you're doing that, and I've done it a couple of times. One is you need to have the time to do it, and Jim is lucky, and so have I been to do that. The other is, you really need to put as much preparation into the boat for the return trip as you did for the trip out. The passage takes its toll. Anything that is kind of marginal will become extremely marginal over that couple thousand miles. And I think one of the reasons Jim has a really good time on his return trips is he is meticulous about preparing his boat. And he knows that boat inside and out. So yeah, it's a worthwhile thing, but you can't take it for granted. It's not Pac Cup light. It is a serious ocean passage.
So
that you
Mike,
get
keep in mind, if you're going to ship your boat home, you're still going to have a lot of prep work to do. There's just kind of no getting around that.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see what else we have here. Oh,
Are you going to bring up money? Because at some point I want to talk about money.
Didn't we already talk about that? How much it
Not
costs
for
to get it
shipping.
over?
I
You
mean,
mean-
I
you
mean the
mean-
whole shebang.
Well, why don't we
Good
get
night,
through?
everybody. It's been a nice meeting.
Yeah.
See you
No, look.
later.
Let's
Thanks,
let's
Jim.
not scare people. Let's get a couple more questions, and then we can get into finances, and we'll open it up for questions out there. We're actually doing very well on time. So
So we have
uh,
another question in the Q&A.
well,
You want to?
in the Q&A, let's take a look here. Let's save that for at the end.
Okay.
It's a valid question on emergency rudders, but we could all spend hours talking about that. So, Greg,
Yeah.
this is we're going to direct this toward first timers.
All right.
And I see some unfamiliar names. Oh, there's an interesting new name, Paul Kamen. Huh.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, um, for first timers, what is one thing you wish you knew before your first race?
That's very easy for me to answer. So I was person in charge for my first race.
Mhm.
And what I did not know is you sometimes have to make decisions that will make very good friends very unhappy.
Yes,
I did not know that.
I
And
didn't either.
it was a very difficult 4 a.m. conversation. And it took me a while to kind of figure out what was going on, because in my head, it was a safety conversation. In the other person's head, it was a criticism of their capabilities. And we didn't have the conversation before we left the dock that if I saw something, I was going to make a call. It wasn't personal. It was just, I was going to make a call. I've had those briefings subsequent to that. It doesn't mean that people don't get their feelings hurt. I had to hurt somebody's feelings a little bit on this last one. But he was much more understanding of where I was coming from than the first time I did it. And it's always
Yeah.
4 a.m. and people are tired and there's been an accidental drive or whatever it might be. And, you know, it's not 2 in the afternoon and lovely and whatever. It's always a
Yeah.
stressful situation. So that's one thing I
Yep.
didn't know that I now know.
Well, one of the observations that I've made, going offshore like that, for those of us that haven't been in the military, that haven't been, trained in the merchant marine, we're not used to actually being in an actual command structure,
Right.
either giving or receiving orders. I mean, sure, we do it on a day sail, but it's just fun. But
Mhm.
out there, it can be life and death, and that's for me anyway. That was a very new experience. So you really touched a nerve with me. Um, Julia, do you have advice for a sailor nervous about their first ocean crossing?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, everybody has nerves. Definitely is one of the first things that comes to mind. And and like I get nerves, before even like silly little buoy races, that don't even matter. And I definitely get nervous before an ocean crossing, and that's funny because that just doesn't go away, And I think that that's also a good thing to keep in mind. Like everybody has nerves, and we all manifest them in different ways. Some people get terse, some people get quiet, some people start talking a lot, and some people get a little bit more aggressive, that kind of thing. So just good to keep in mind that the nerves you're feeling, probably everybody on the boat is feeling in some way, even if they've done this a million times. So that was like one thing I definitely wanted to say. Also, nerves are a positive thing. It just means that you care and you're paying attention. It's kind of like baked into our core being as being humans. And one thing, regardless of anybody's sailing ability or time on the water, one thing we can always do to help, bring or put yourself at ease, is to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. And so, of course, we're talking a lot about boat preparation. What does this mean if you're bringing your own boat? But what does this mean if you're a crew and you're on a boat and you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward? So it's like, what do you make sure you have the right gear? Make sure you have what you need to be comfortable. If you know you get seasick, so which hopefully you've figured out because you've spent time offshore on your 150-mile qualifier, you've hopefully done even just a quick sail out to the Farallones and back. And I remember my first Farallones race, I think I was like 13 or 14, I got very, very ill. I was like, okay, cool. Now I have to plan for this in the future. And I still get seasick. So there's various over-the-counter remedies, there's various ways you can mitigate that, but just kind of like do what you can and prepare in advance just to make sure that you can be your best. And so then that you're going to put your best foot forward. And also you're not going to be a liability. Which I hate to deliver that so bluntly, but a lot of this, we haven't touched on medical emergencies, and I don't think we need to, because that's, obviously a best prepared boat, best prepared team means that you can avoid this. But it's like, stay hydrated, do your part. And all of that has nothing to do with actual sailing prowess. And I think the last part of that is also you know, talk to people. If you happen to belong to a certain demographic that doesn't look like most of the other people in the sailing world, you're like, hey, talk to people who represent that, and say, hey, what do you do to handle yourself? What do you do to make yourself successful? Like, what are your performance, aids? Like for me, it's like electrolytes. I never leave shore without a ton of electrolytes. And from even day one on, I'm making sure I have at least a liter of water with electrolytes in it. And I know that that's what I need in order to be my best, as a 5'3" human who's like generally physically exerting themselves quite a lot racing. So that kind of thing. And again, none of this is rocket science. It's just, starts with like, what do you need to do your best?
Yeah.
So-
And chiming in again on a point I made earlier, Julia is an absolute dynamo on the boat. She's a wonderful crew, and she really puts her effort into preparing herself to be on the boat. And good example for me when the 2019 Transpac. I had spent 2 years in the gym and was able to contribute considerably more than I had on prior races, and it felt great. Your body is part of the boat. So yeah, it's good stuff. Um, does anybody else want to throw anything out for first timers, and then we can open it up for some of the questions that have come in, and folks are more than welcome to load us up with questions, and we'll share them around.
So, so one thing I did my first time, was to get some crew who had done an ocean crossing before, so it wasn't all novices.
That's a good point. Yeah, on my first one, it was all first timers. And I freaked out so much I canceled our first Pac Cup 3 days before the race. Then somebody, who was it? It was my return delivery skipper. I called him up and told him that, and he said, "Okay, Mike, whatever you want," not knowing that I go by Michael. And he said, "But let me ask you one question. I know you're not ready for the race, but is the boat ready to make the passage?" And I stopped for a minute. And I said, "Well, yeah." He says, "Well, then, maybe that's okay." And so we went, we had a great time and finished last, but we had a really good time. And then I did it 14 more times. Any other first timer advice? Let's take a look at some of the questions. Looking in the chart, somebody asked about how much fuel. I like to bring, oh golly, let's see, about 5 or 6 15-gallon drums.
Which
I like
direction are they asking how much fuel?
Now, come on. On the way back, I think that came up and on the way back. On the way over, you carry enough to power up your radio and search for a man overboard and
Yeah.
dock.
Yeah, way
Uh,
back, 100 gallons, 110 gallons, something like that.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's what we've carried twice, and both times we've been able to donate a little fuel when I got back, but I felt good about it. Like, great. So I had an extra 25 gallons. Awesome.
I don't know how he did it, but I had a delivery skipper bring the Santa Cruz 50 back, and we loaded him up with 100 and what like I said, 5 or 6 of those 15-gallon drums. And when he delivers the boat, they were all full. He maybe used 20 gallons on the whole trip over. I don't know how he did that.
Did it take like a month?
No, no. So Santa Cruz 50 standard return time 15 days. Passport 40 standard return time 17 days. And it doesn't seem to matter. But yeah, so that's not bad. I think he just got lucky on the wind.
Was that Reese?
That was Reese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually he had a good deal going. He was charging his crew because he called it an educational sale.
Well,
Can you get the drums on the island? That's a thing you'd probably want to arrange in advance.
No,
I
you can drive over to Home Depot on the other side and get as many jugs, 5-gallon jugs as you
You'll
want.
get the 5s, you won't get the 15s.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with the 5s.
And I
Yeah,
think,
you can.
oh,
Go
excuse
ahead.
me for interrupting. I was saying, I think, especially for like boats that haven't delivered back before, and particularly if you're considering bringing on like a delivery captain or maybe just somebody who wants to be a delivery assist, sitting down and thinking like, where are we going to put the fuel? What kind of padding do we want underneath the jerry cans or underneath the bigger tanks? And just kind of like thinking that through and having that geometry figured out ahead of time will actually help you a lot on the other end, because you're exhausted. It's, by the way, it's 90 degrees and 85% humidity in the tropics, and no one really wants to be investing a lot of energy in prepping a boat for a delivery. So the more you can figure out ahead of time, it actually will help you on the back end to have some of that figured out.
And the big question, how do you get, especially if you're using drums and not the cans, how do you get the fuel from the drum into the tank?
Jim, I think you could answer this.
No, for the drums, you just have a little pump. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know that in advance. You don't decide it once you've started.
Yeah. You
Uh,
got to have like a siphon sorted out or one of these little pump
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
Yeah, I finally set up an electric pump, and boy, that was cool. Um,
So one thing I could add here is that one of the services the Pac Up provides is a container that you can reserve space in to ship stuff over, like empty fuel tanks or cruising sails or whatever else, or delivery sails. And so you don't need to take stuff like that on the race. That'll be announced later in the cycle, and
right.
there's a charge for it, but it's a very good service, and you can also ship stuff back the same way in the same container.
Yeah, that's something that we've been doing for a while. It allows you to lighten the boat on the way over and maybe not have stuff beat up on the way back. Um, I see in the Q&A a question from Matthew. Emergency rudder. Okay, so first of all, emergency rudder is a good freak out point for a lot of us. Certainly me in my first race, and then my second race. Emergency rudder, monitor wind vane or equivalent. I have an opinion, but let's hear what anybody else has to say. Jeff, what do you think? You're the chief inspector.
That means I'm the chief guy that doesn't know as much. That has been a big issue over the years. And if there's been anything that has caused people to return other than a medical emergency, it's been rudder failure. And there's been so many studies, Michael, we've talked about it over the years. How do you inspect your rudder? We recommend that if you're taking your boat out of the water, drop your rudder, check the rudder bearings, look at what it is. That's what drives your boat. If you lose your rudder, the best backup means you're going to either be sailing back home really slow, or you're going to be going to Hawaii really slow. You effectively are taken out of the race, but you want to make sure you get the boat and crew there safely. So, the best boats probably have a cassette design off the transom. I think those are best set up that way, because you can deploy them. If you lose your rudder and it's blowing 20 knots in the middle of the night and there's 12-foot waves, I mean, the boat's going to be very uncomfortable. How do you deploy it? So I believe that the cassette system is probably the best way to do it. People have been very creative. You can steer your boat with a drogue. We've decided that if people can prove that, there are systems, spinnaker controls, lines, you can steer your boat, but you're going to make it best 3 knots. You want to be doing 3 knots down the trades with 10-foot following seas and 25 knots, it won't be fun. So we suggest that every skipper really looks at that system prudently and try to make a robust system first for your boat, and then look up the backup system. So some of the monitor wind vanes, some of those things can be used as a rudder, but I still believe that a cassette system off the back end of the boat, which takes some configuration, some design work, some steel tubing, is going to keep the boat safe. But it does it takes a little bit of effort.
The monitor wind vanes have always scared me a little because they just seemed really small. I know that Paul Kamen is on the line, and he has written for me the definitive article on cassette rudder design.
Yes.
And he suggests that that rudder that you hang off the transom should be at least half the size of your main rudder, and those monitors don't quite make that. But again, if you have one, try it out, see if it works for you.
So
The other
And Michael,
yeah,
sorry. I was just going to mention too, we installed the brand new cassette one that Jeff was just mentioning. Anybody wants any pictures of what we did too, happy to send them out, just email me. But yeah, we went through the testing on it, worked great. The system's, really, really easy. And we had guys on our return trip in 2006. Rudder actually broke off 50 miles out, so had to deploy the emergency rudder. This was a delivery crew in high seas. They did not have a cassette. We didn't have a cassette at that time. And apparently it was just one giant nightmare. They actually gave up on trying to deploy the rudder system, the emergency rudder, because it was not a cassette in high seas. And they ended up just calling the Coast Guard to come and get them and tow the boat back in.
Nice.
So yeah, the cassette makes it a lot easier.
And I see in the webinar that Falk has said that he's got a spare 6-foot cassette carbon fiber rudder if someone wants one. I think Falk, we will forgive you for the spam. You can post that in our forum as well. That sounds like a nice thing. I know that the original heavy plywood cassette rudder system that Jack Beta lent to me in 2000 is still making the rounds. It's still on some boat somewhere because the thing is bulletproof.
And
Pineapple
I recall that Paul Kamen, he came up with a system for smaller boats, primarily, I believe. Maybe I'm not sure, Paul, you can add that had like some sail material, some
Yeah.
poles. I mean, you could still, again, you're looking for something to at least get the boat going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
takes an effort.
Yeah,
Not-
but remember, you may need to use that system for 1,000 miles. So
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, can I talk about money?
yes,
Um,
let's talk about money. Back in the day, somebody asked how much it cost, and I had a pretty pat answer. I don't think it's a good answer anymore. What do you want to say about money,
No,
Jim?
it's more of I just want to give people tips and empowerment to ask questions because there are
Yeah.
expensive ways to do things and there's budget ways to do things. So we can talk about, a carbon cassette rudder that could cost you, well, a used one's probably $4,000. A new one could be 8 to 10. That's a lot
Now
of
Falk
money.
is happy. Yeah.
Or a brand new A7 or a small symmetrical shy kite that Julia mentioned. Do you need one? You absolutely do. But you can buy a used one for probably $800 at second wind sales or minis.
You're gonna blow it up
Um,
anyway.
yeah, you need a life raft. Yeah, you can buy a brand new one for $4 or $5 and you can rent one for $1,200. So I'm just encouraging people who are trying to do this all on a budget to ask those questions about, hey, if you're on a tight budget, what's the budget way to meet the requirements and to be safe? Now some people they don't have that problem. They've got the money and they're gonna go get the pro way to do it. But I know the first few times I went to Hawaii, there wasn't a whole lot of money, and it was like, how do we do this on a budget?
One of the things that I was really gratified by was, once your fellow sailors, once your friends know you're doing this and you're committed to it, they'll give you stuff. They'll lend you stuff. Reaching struts, a shy kite. I mean, I got my first passage, half the boat was things just people spontaneously offered to me. So that is a wonderful thing. But you can also go out and spend, I guess back in my day it was internet money. Now it's AI money, I suppose. You can
Crypto.
spend your AI money and buy everything new. And I used to tell people in the early 2000s, you're going to spend at least $20,000. And that's before, remember, you need to decide, are you hosting your crew? Are you buying everybody shirts? Are you buying everybody flights? In our later years, our crew hospitality budget was nearly as big as our boat equipment budget. But we treated them very well.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I heard stories about that as well.
Yeah, well,
that.
we were having a lot of fun. We were having a lot of fun, and we really appreciated our crew. Noelle appreciated that you kept me from dying.
Oh, I-
A related.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off mid-flow, Michael, again, but I had a couple thoughts on the idea of cost. And one is, and this is, they haven't asked me to say this, but Blue Pelican down in Alameda is a secondhand consignment shop for anything marine related. If you haven't been there, I'm sure most people on this call have heard of them. But when I was doing a double-handed Express 27 effort back in 2018 on a shoestring budget, we were both, just trying to piece it all together and did a lot on our own. We were in there every week, and it was like,
Yeah.
you're finding stuff and you're like, hey, I recognize this from so and so's boat. Like, hey, now it's for sale here. So that's one suggestion. So go, check out that stuff and just make it as part of your routine as you're rolling around the bay, running errands. You're like, hey, I'll swing through and see what else is in Blue Pelican. And the second thing is, I see, Falk, your question about what is etiquette for sharing costs with the crew, and I figured I'd take first crack at that. A lot of this comes down to, actually, even going back to Greg, your comment about like, what does it look like? What is structure in, how comfortable do you feel like saying certain things to people in the crew? A lot of this comes down to expectation management, and at a very early level. And so it's like, even from your every kind of structure within the boat, like, hey, what are people's roles and responsibilities? What can they expect? And I know it's really tough to know how to dictate that and how to lead in that if you haven't done it before, but it all starts with a conversation. And it starts from you when it's your own boat, with thinking like, what is my budget? What can I reasonably afford to do this? And then start talking to people and say, what does it cost to actually do this? And if there's a big difference between what your budget is and what you realize the cost to do this will be for your program, that's when you start talking about bringing on a cost partner. And I've raced on a couple programs now where there was someone who's brought on as either a permanent boat partner, or a more of a silent partner, and maybe just a partner for that race to help with cost. And then other times it's like, hey, you pay your own way as crew, or like, hey, the crew asks, what's the deal with cost? And the owner's like, no, actually, I can pay for everything. So it all starts with a conversation. I know it can feel uncomfortable to have, but it's easier to ask that up front than to have miscommunications later.
Yeah.
So hope that helps.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
I-
maybe
Yeah,
Julie,
that-
I can.
Go ahead.
I was just, I think it's a great question to ask, because I think it's one of those that nobody, it's good to know. I'm happy to share too what we did even, and I think there's 2 points I'll make. Is one, we only, again, to Julia's point, it's every program's a little bit different. This last one in 24, I actually, had the crew. Everybody chose. A couple of them asked, and so I had to make a decision on, okay, am I going to take any money from my crew? And I never had before. This one was a little bit more of a costly program. And I knew that, look, no matter what, whatever they're going to give me, it was going to be very little. It's going to be a drop in the bucket. But at the same time, it allowed them to feel like, hey, they're committed. And so that was the one point, as they said, okay, here's it. And again, it was a drop in the bucket. The other point I'll make on this is, and it was actually my father who told me this many, many years ago. He's like, just remember that there can only be one person that's going to make that final call. If you have to turn around before you're halfway, you're going to do this, and you don't want there, to Julia's point again, to be this weird conversation where if everybody's equal in what they paid and 3 of them want to go, 2 of them want to turn around, be aware of that and have those, make your decision smartly.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, and so it doesn't also have to be about financial contributions. I mean, we had people prepare frozen meals, having people come and work on projects on the boat is extremely helpful. So it's not just also about money, it's just about other kinds of contributions, how crew can help.
It's about people showing up when the work needs to be done.
Yeah. I've been fortunate with that, and there's a lot of tasks that could be, parceled out very discreetly. Provisioning, you could just, turn provisioning completely over to somebody else. You shouldn't complain about it underway. But I'll just say in 2004, I lost a lot of weight on the trip over. But the other thing is, one thing we did with great effect was we had work parties, and I wrote down about 50 little tasks on Post-its and put them up on the bulkhead. And everybody showed up for the work party, and I said, look, grab any task that appeals to you. And it's actually quite a bit of fun. I noticed the clean the head Post-it was still left when I had
Stayed up a long time.
yeah, that stayed up quite a while. But Bob, you make a really good point. It doesn't have to be a financial contribution. Those are always welcome. But everybody should feel, if you can manage it, everybody should feel that they're part of the effort. Yes, one person does have to be the decision maker. On my first Pac Cup, we actually debated for 3 days whether to jibe because I did not have the habit of command. And my two crew were much smarter than I was in terms of in the bay racing. Nonetheless, had we made a decision sooner, it might have helped. It didn't, by the way, but it might have. If there's no more questions, and Paul came and made a good point, you can sail back on a smaller boat. It's a lot of fun. It just takes longer. I think we can wrap up. And Mike has suggested that.
Paul still has his hand up.
He has his hand up. All right, Paul, what do you want to know?
Shall I allow him to talk?
You know how that goes, but okay.
I did.
Okay. What do you got to say, Paul?
You'd
Let
hear.
him in.
Okay.
There he is.
I brought my Mera 25 back in 1986, and I had a blast. I only had one night that had to be bare poles, and I read Moby Dick cover to cover.
Wow, that's an accomplishment in itself.
Most overrated novel ever written, in my humble opinion. And then in 2018, I brought the Davidson 44 Imagine back, and we had charging problems, so we wanted to make sure we left enough charge in the battery to start the engine when we got there. So
I
that
remember that. Yeah.
was a 19-day trip with no power, and I really enjoyed both of them. But the crowd with more 24s and Santa Cruz 27s is really missing half the fun if they don't
Yeah.
sail back. You just need time and some good books.
Yeah, I got unlucky on my returns, but yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here. We will be posting the recording of this as well as the recording of the earlier session that we had a couple days ago, I guess a week ago, and we'll be looking forward to questions. You can post them on the forum, and we'll see them. I get to visit the forum once a day to remove spam. There's a lot of spam there. We'll try to fix that. But before we let everybody go, one quick answer from each of our panelists, and I'll call on you. Why should someone do the Pac Cup? Commodore Bob.
Well, I've really enjoyed doing it. I enjoy being involved in this community probably even more, but I first wanted to sail across the ocean and did it once, and then I have to do it again, and then I have to get a faster boat, and so I've really enjoyed it, all the prep, the actual trip, and then all the really great stuff in Kaneohe. It's definitely it's a wonderful place to make landfalls, especially if you get there in the daytime. Um, and it's a really wonderful thing to do in your life.
Mike, why should someone do the Pac Cup?
Well, as you know, the name of my boat is Storymaker. So I have to answer with it's all about making great stories that you will be able to share for the rest of your life that very few people on this planet will be able to share. So it's a great club to be a part of.
Excellent. And we look forward to seeing you at the party on the 28th. Jeff, why should someone do the Pac Cup?
I think the question is more like, why wouldn't you? I mean, if you
One
know,
of
if
those
you-
guys.
Well, no, I mean, again, I have to go back to what Pac Cup meant to me. And my sailing career started windsurfing in the gorge, Pacific Northwest, right? Hood River. And then I started seeing sailboats. I go, well, that's a different part of sailing. That's a different way to control the wind. So I started racing lightnings on the lakes, and then I got into J24s and all these things happened. But to me, the Pac Cup, because of the family, the community, the fun part of it particularly, but it gave me, I don't know, I feel better. It's just,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain. Very few people really put themselves in position to do something challenging. I mean, I have friends that like climb mountains, like Chico. You guys know Chico. He's like climbing off the sides of Hawaii stuff. He's doing nuts, and that just scares the hell out of me. Then I have other people go, "What are you doing in a 24-foot going across the ocean?" I don't know. It feels better. It just it's hard to explain. It's very emotional. I've met so many good people. I am privileged to be a part of this panel, I want to say, and even more privileged to count upon the Pac Cup people as close friends and people that I've learned so much about for the last 25 years. And so again, the question is, why wouldn't you?
Mhm.
Again, look at your boat, look at your campaign, look at your ambitions, but know that you're going to be part of a great group of communication, a whole bunch of people. You get to go to Kaneohe, and by God, I'll buy every one of you. Well, okay, a couple of you a Mai Tai when you get to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Actually, no, there's 3 Mai Tais when you get to Hawaii. You show
Okay.
up with your family there, and you're going to feel like you really accomplished something that maybe you didn't think you could ever do. And then you start asking yourself, well, I don't know, I got 2 years to prepare to do it again. The boat's already ready to go. Everything's
Ready to go.
go back to Jim. It's like it's a budget thing. You have to really budget money and time and ambitions. But all I can say is, and I've been promoting this forever since I've been a part of it in my little world, just go sailing. Come to Kaneohe. Be a part of it.
Julia, why should someone do the Pac Cup?
Oh man, you're gonna make me follow that.
Oh,
Never
come
mind.
on.
Greg, no.
I know you
What
can.
next?
I got one I got a pre-canned one. You can-
Oh, that was smart. No,
I
no.
asked this young lady here that question. I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I got to do this thing later. What would you say?" And she said, "It's a once in a lifetime experience, probably most beautiful race you will do, and it's not that hard."
I love
Okay.
that.
Okay, Julia. Now, why
That's
should
a
someone
good
do
one.
All right,
Oh,
follow
no.
that.
No, I love that. Well, I gotta say, special shout out if you can ever do this with one of your kids. And like, I'm the kid speaking to. I got to do this with my parent. It was my first one, and I know for those of you who know my dad, he had his own rigging program. He was a pro sailor forever, and so I got to like get to see him in action do the thing, and I'm like, oh my God, so this is what it could be. And like, wow, and that's like kind of the standard I'm like still chasing to today. And I will say the thing that came to my mind is you don't really learn what you can be unless you really truly push yourself. And like distance racing offshore for us, for those of us, I think if you're on this call, you're probably a sailor and you're probably big into it, like the rest of us are. But getting to push yourself for this long in this kind of a theater is really where you get to really, really where you get to lean into yourself. Like, what kind of person am I? And you really don't learn that until you get out there. And I think there's really no better format to do that. Like, we're so lucky to be, I think most of the people here are from California or from the Pacific Northwest. We're so lucky that two of the most preeminent ocean races like in the world are started from our home, our home time zone. If you're not right here in the Bay with us. And that's such an incredible thing to get to do. And then you get to end up in a great place and you get to meet all these and continue to know all these amazing people and make foundational memories with all the people who matter the most to you. So yeah, we look forward to
Nice.
seeing y'all out there.
Nice. Can't wait to see
Okay.
you there, Julia.
Okay, Quancy, follow that.
Oof, it's tough. But water, stars, and making new friends for life.
Nice.
And the new
Nice.
friends for life, it's serious, man. You will walk away with lifetime relationships.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, we
I
all
may
just
add to that,
go.
when I first started Pac Cup, and I'm like, oh, I got to go down to California, go to one of these little seminars. So I went online. This is like 2004, and reached out. Oh, I want to come down. I just need a bunk on a boat. Gosh, is it okay if I just come down? Jim Quancy responded, said, yeah, you can stay on my boat. This is Jim. Yeah, stay on my boat. Green Buffalo. Yeah, just go to it's just Richmond Yacht Club. Just hop the fence at 11 o'clock at night. You'll find my boat. And I did. And friendships. I can count on Jim as one of my closest friends, him and Mary. I love them both. So that's why I keep coming back, because of that. I've developed so much over the years with all of you people, and I look forward to many more. So there you go.
Guys, that's great. I
Go
want to
ahead.
thank, yeah, make hearts. I want to thank all of you. I hope our panelists found that, our participants found that interesting and useful. For those of you that have not signed up for the race and are considering it, the entries are open still at pacificcup.org. We've got plenty of room for you. You'd be more than welcome. We've got a party coming up at the end of September that's just pure social. You can chat with people, have a little sip, have a little bite. Safety at Sea seminar coming up October 11th and 12th, and then another one in January at Kaneohe. The October one will be at Encinal Yacht Club. And oh, we've got a prep seminar November. When is that? November something. Anyway, there's a calendar on the pacificcup.org website. Post any more questions you have on the forum, and I think unless anybody has a final word, we are out of here.
Oh, and we're hoping to have a party in the Seattle area sometime in the next few months.
Excellent plan. Yes, that's it.
Boxing Day, Jim, you guys coming up?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll meet you there.
And I can't stress this point enough. It's time to start shopping for your crew Aloha shirts.
Absolutely.
It is.
All right, folks. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. I hope to see everybody again very soon.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody, for participating.
Good to see you.
All right. We
See
can
you
stop
later.
recording. All right. Bye, guys.
See ya.